Ladies and gentlemen, coming soon, a podcast you've all been waiting for. The movie podcast to end all movie podcasts. A podcast that discusses and critiques the best of the best and the worst of the worst movies playing at a theater near you. With a host whose opinions have been deemed as fact by your favorite fact checkers. And that's a fact. Without further ado, let me introduce you to the movie maestro, the tyrant of theater, the gumshoe of review, the man that makes theater employees and Hollywood execs shiver by his mere presence. Ladies and gentlemen, the judge, the jury, the sultan of cinema, Justin Henson. Welcome to the Movie Wire.
Welcome to this week's edition of The Movie Wire. I'm your host, Justin Henson, and welcome to the show. We got a big show this week with 3 brand new reviews that are all playing in theaters right now. This week on the show...
Live from New York, it's Saturday night!
And live from New York, it's Saturday night! And live from New York, it's Saturday night!
I'm gonna tell you live from New York, it's Saturday night!
It's a movie about the long-running comedy show, and it's 90 minutes leading up to the first episode in Saturday Night. If you can't see a better future, build one in Francis Ford Coppola's Megalopolis. And finally, The World is a Stage. In the sequel to the surprise 2019 hit comes Joker, Folie, Deux. We've got a lot to cover this week, so let's jump right in. Ready for my verdict? Let's get into it.
Out of the windows to watch. A roar and a burst of flame. The Movie Wire podcast.
There it is.
We just need people like me.
The Wire.
And here we go.
The city of New Rome faces a duel between Caesar, a brilliant artist in favor of a utopian future, and the greedy mayor Franklin Cicero. Between the vision and the feud is Julia Cicero, with her loyalty divided between her father and her beloved in Francis Ford Coppola's Megalopolis.
One filmmaker has always been ahead of his time.
Go.
Now, from visionary writer and director Francis Ford Coppola, comes an event nothing can prepare you for.
Imagine today's society as a branch of civilization about to reach a dead end. Is this way we're living the only one that's available to us? My plan is a city that people can dream about.
Megalopolis.
What about those standing in your way?
Power to the people!
Who like it the way it is?
People don't need dreams. People need help now. Don't let the now destroy the forever.
We're in need of a great debate about the future!
Enjoy the show.
1, 2, 3, yippee, yay.
There's still so much to accomplish, but is there time? Go.
Francis Ford Coppola's Megalopolis.
Now, before I get into the movie review, I know I'm going to feel guilty if I didn't say no disrespect to Francis Ford Coppola. He has taken us through a journey of characters and story and dialogue throughout the years, and it has been extremely memorable. But this isn't it. Watching Megalopolis is like watching a Snapchat customer service call between a senior citizen and a new college graduate that just got his master's, but realized there's absolutely no one hiring for his major. So he settles on taking those calls, teaching senior citizens how to use Snapchat. And once this graduate has his mission accomplished after 9 hours on the phone teaching this senior citizen how to use a filter, but he has no idea on the damage he's caused. Now friends, family, friends of colleagues, neighbors, the president of the goddamn United States are receiving hundreds of pictures of Barbara with dog tongue, starry eyes, and an angel's halo or a baby face in their messages. Whoever introduced Francis Ford Coppola to CGI needs to be found and interrogated. But before I get ahead of myself, I will say this. When you overload a movie with CGI, especially with Coppola in the director's seat, just like our Snapchatting Barbara, you're gonna get some good shots. Even though the movie is pumped with overpowering visuals, the movie's visuals will not go down in this movie's downfall, because that overstuffed, dull, drawn-out, drowsy dialogue will be its downfall. Even more so in the first half of the movie. The dialogue is so stiff, overworked, over-communicated, the talented cast doesn't even know what to do with it, and it comes across as a stage play. Now, it's been said that Coppola has been working on this script since the early 80s, and for some it might take another 40 years to understand it, and for some of us film lovers, even a lifetime, since each line is delivered what feels like an attempt at being symbolic that accompanies an even more confusing symbolic visual. If this movie was a puzzle, this would be a cinematic puzzle where the picture puzzle is just a black rectangle and about 20,000 pieces. Once we finally get to about the hour and 45-minute mark, pieces seem to just start to fit. We can ignore the pen script by Coppola and its symbolic meanings. The performances started to get comfortable in their portrayals, and it was a little bit easier to understand. I was starting to piece together the context clues based on the performances. It was almost like watching a foreign film without subtitles. We rely heavily on our talent on screen here. The movie surrounds two main powers, our visionary Caesar, played by Adam Driver, and our political power Mayor Cicero, played by Giancarlo Esposito. And Shia LaBeouf gets a bone thrown to him by Coppola as another person thirsting for power at some point. We also have complementary supporting female roles to support our characters and power to support the vision of our characters. We have Wow Platinum, played by Aubrey Plaza, as a thirst for relevance and power, and Julia Cicero, played by Nathalie Emmanuel, the mayor's daughter who falls in love with Caesar and can see his vision and who he really is. Coppola forms a Shakespearean attempt here that really does feel too close at times to our star-crossed lovers from Romeo and Juliet, with a conflict of conflicting families. And maybe that was the attempt of Coppola, as a cross between Julius Caesar and Romeo and Juliet. But I'm not gonna break down each and every thought of this movie. I don't have time. This is gonna be that movie made for a film school teacher that's a year away from retirement that needs to fill in his yearly syllabus. Film school, day 1, 1 minute into watching the film. Pause. What did we think? Day 3 into film school, 4 minutes into the movie. What did we think? Day 152, 15 fucking minutes into the film. What did we think? Year 4 into film school. Time to talk about symbolic cinematic visuals. By the time this film study ends, some of us would be able to complete med school. Now, there will be some that walk out of this movie and say that was such a beautiful movie with such a beautiful outlook, or make up what they took away from the messaging with just a generic line of saying that was such a symbolic, deep movie. No shit. If this is the person's first watch of this movie and they're walking out spouting a symbolic message, they're lying to you. These are the people that keep Shakespeare or books that are 800 pages plus on their coffee tables to look smarter than they are. Now, let's take a breath for a second. It's not that Megalopolis is a horrible movie. It's really not. But it is obvious that Coppola took this long to write it because it shows. It's an idea that started in the 80s up until now, with a message and opinions on society, the evolution of society, and politics now. This is a script that has been reworked to death, and I could feel Coppola's rewrites as certain topics in the world over time became important to him. And I can feel him going back to certain scenes, certain topics, and rewriting his emotions on this screenplay. And in a way, I respect that. I actually do admire that. It's his life's work that he touches up whenever something he is passionate about occurs. But the problem is, we can feel sporadic bursts of passion in the writing, but really nothing that connects the dots what he's trying to convey. It's like making a movie by just copying and pasting thoughts from a diary into a screenplay and inserting filler to make a story. But there are some good cherry-picking things we can take away from the film. The production design by Beth Meikle and Bradley Rubin is nothing short of ambitious. A complete immersion into a world that feels simultaneously futuristic and familiar. The buildings, the architectural aesthetics, and detail reflect a blend of modernism and dystopian elements, with towering structures and sprawling urban landscapes posed against scenes of social unrest and personal struggle. The amount of visuals and the visual richness does at times confuse, but at the same time, from cars on the streets to greenery to buildings to regularity, gives us a sense of relatability, which, given the dexterity of Coppola's time spent on the script, does an okay job of not making it feel entirely pieced together over the decades. Another okay win for this movie is the amount of talent and performances. Again, given the overly thought out, overly written material, the cast has to decipher decades of thought process, and they do a good job. However, some characters could benefit from deeper development, as certain arcs feel rushed or underexplored, especially with our Caesar character that spends too much time attempting to deliver a thought-provoking symbolic one-liner instead of helping move the story forward or moving his character forward. The film does aim for an ambitious scope, but it occasionally sacrifices character depth for the sake of visual thematic exploration. This can lead to a disconnect. I know for me, I found myself yearning for more profound understanding of some pivotal figures. Megalopolis, if you attend in the theater, you have to be in a certain mood to get through this film. You can't be tired, you can't be drunk, maybe even have a protein bar or an energy drink before you go in. This is one of those movies that will be a hard sell on streaming, especially if you have a lot of distractions in the home. I give the movie a lot of credit for some truly great performances across the board given the material, Aubrey Plaza and Giancarlo Esposito especially. As a filmmaker, I absolutely love and respect Francis Ford Coppola, but honestly, this is a victim of an overworked screenplay over the decades. My advice, if you decide to go see this movie, buy a ticket, walk in maybe an hour and 10 minutes into it, and you will be able to get the gist of what's going on. And it will be more fulfilling than sitting through the first half that really just threw the movie off. Now, if this were to be Francis Ford Coppola's last movie, honestly, I would be okay with it. With how many great conversations and moments have come from his previous movies, he's allowed to have a movie that speaks directly for him, and we can tell this movie does speak for him. And this will still be a conversational piece, but it won't be appreciated until years of studying. So for now, I'm giving Megalopolis 2 stars.
Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby.
Now, before we get into the rest of the show, make sure you check out my reviews for movies that just became available to rent, buy, or stream now.
Now available on video cassette.
The juice is loose in the sequel, 36 years in the making, in Beetlejuice. That was a fun trip that was very much alive, receiving 3 stars. And it makes me really hope that there is a Beetlejuice. Oh shit.
Showtime!
Everybody deserves a happy ending, and Deadpool and Wolverine, that was one of the biggest, surprising, and audience-fueled experiences of the summer, receiving 3.5 stars. The things left unspoken can kill you, and I won't speak to the repetitive formula because I can hear the well-executed pacing and performances in Hear No Evil, which received 3 stars. Love Hurts and the Devil's in the Details, and Strange Darling, which had a twist that may have come too early, but still a refreshing take on the tale of a serial killer that landed a killer 3 stars. True Love Never Dies, but this movie should. In the remake to the Brandon Lee classic comes The Crow, which flew south really quick, and hopefully it stays the fuck there, receiving 1.5 stars. Meet Aya, she's an AI here to help in Afraid, but she couldn't help me end the movie quicker, and I'm afraid for anybody that wastes their money on this movie, receiving 1.5 stars. Alexa, block Afraid.
I'm having trouble connecting to the internet.
God fucking damn it. Fear is calling cuckoo, where at times it's cuckoo good and other times it's just Cuckoo, receiving 2.5 stars. M. Night Shyamalan brings us into another one of his traps of storytelling in Trap, that trapped in 1.5 stars. A revenge story that we have all seen before, only this time it surrounds skincare that will make you want to put on a face mask, cucumbers and all, to avoid watching this movie in skincare that received 2 stars. One of the biggest box office bombs of the year, and rightfully so, is Borderlands. That really was Borderland, receiving 1.5 stars. Nicolas Cage plays a serial killer in this haunting film that reminds us once again of how good of an actor Nicolas Cage is in Long Legs, which received 3 stars. Then finally, everything he draws is about to get real in Harold and the Purple Crayon that will make you wish you had an eraser, receiving 1 star. Now, before we get into the last set of reviews, there is a podcast that not only do I listen to each and every week, but I also tend to drop in from time to time to watch just a little TV. And that's with Dan over at the Casting Views podcast. You can check out his latest episode where I drop in and we discuss Schitt's Creek. That show and that episode link will be in the description of this episode. But let's hear from Dan over at Casting Views now.
Fancy taking a humorous trip down a random topic each week? You do? Well, you're in luck. Casting Views, presented by me, Dan, and a host of guests, bring you just that. With topics from the world of entertainment, science, sport, and everyday life, there's bound to be a topic that's going to inform and amuse. Catch Casting Views every Sunday on all listening platforms now.
At 11:30 p.m. on October 11th, 1975, a ferocious troupe of young comedians and writers changed television forever. Find out what happened behind the scenes in the 90 minutes leading up to the first broadcast of Saturday Night Live in Jason Reitman's Saturday Night.
In live from New York, it's Saturday night!
Hey, free comedy show, plenty of seats, plenty of tickets left, guys, free show. Fuck's sake.
So, big night.
Look, my name is Lorne Michaels. I'm the producer of Saturday Night.
The whole night?
Yeah, the whole night.
Chevy Chase, Gilda Radner, Dan Iyek, how the fuck do you pronounce this?
Ackroyd. You know, I was thinking, why don't we punt? We should run the dress rehearsal and claw back a win next Saturday.
We can't, Dick. It's a live show.
We're just not ready.
Doesn't matter that we're ready. It matters that it's 11:30. That's when we go on.
Lauren, all I'm trying to do is give you advice. It's in everyone's best interest, mainly yours.
Sorry, was that a threat?
Look around, Lauren. You haven't locked the script. Your crew is in open rebellion.
Fuck you! Fuck you! I definitely fucked you.
The writers on the 17th floor tied a belt around Big Bird's neck and hung him from my dressing room door.
So tell me how you fit into this ensemble.
Oh, is this an ensemble?
NBC makes more money playing runes of The Tonight Show.
NBC is lucky to have something as relevant as this show.
Lauren, they don't even want it.
That's logical, Dick. That's why they're paying us all to be here.
I mean, Lauren, 90 minutes of live television by a group of 20-year-olds who've never made anything. Do you ever stop and wonder why they said yes? A counterculture show starring total unknowns with zero narrative and even less structure. They want you to fail.
We just have to make it to air.
Am I still in the show?
Jesus Christ.
Sorry, tripped over my penis.
Now, my first thought walking out of this film was that I was exhausted from watching Saturday Night, and I was reminded of 1994's Radioland Murders that made me mentally exhausted. The main difference here, instead of all the characters yelling out their lines, tripping, bumping into things with hard one-liners and hard cuts, Saturday Night feels actually like a chaotic prep to the 90 minutes prior to the show, with the exception of an ice skating scene with Matt Wood, who plays John John Belushi and plays him extremely well. Saturday Night feels genuine in its intent at creating a feeling of chaos with a proper balance of comedy, stakes, and keeping it a realistic feel. We have a scene in the movie that really did solidify the realism and care that went into this film, where we come to the final moments, the final minute, the final seconds of the countdown before becoming live on TV for the first time. The movie doesn't focus on the would-be stars now. It doesn't focus on the drama behind the scenes per se, but rather gives us a situation and visual of actual brick being laid on set up until the final moments. And we get this great feeling of everybody lending a hand to lay actual brick on the set. Lorne Michaels, who is responsible for over 800 episodes of Saturday Night Live from 1975 to now, was 31 years old when he started the show, and he is portrayed here by Gabriel LaBelle, who recently played in Steven Spielberg's The Fabelmans. Now, I don't know a lot about Lorne Michaels except from excerpts from documentaries or interviews, so I can't say how accurate the portrayal is, but with a new show with a lot on the line, with chaos happening all around him, if this portrayal of calmness, ease, is the actual way he handled this chaotic mix of 90 minutes, then it makes complete sense to me why he has been so successful in SNL. And when we look holistically as a movie, it works to balance off the chaos without asking too many questions. But there were questions that did arrive from the middle of the film, where we get glimpses of characters and dialogue that raise the question of how did this show get approved by the studio without so much of a plan? Especially when we are introduced to Dave Tebbutt, a network executive played by William Dafoe, who continuously asks what this show is about or what the plan is. It brings up questions of credibility. For example, did this show just get approved in a drunken deal? How did this show get approved in the first place? Why Lorne Michaels? How did they pick the cast? The film skates over these legitimate questions to just merely focus on the 90 minutes prior of the show, but by the end of the film, we ask ourselves, okay, but why and how? And you know what? I get it. I do. The film really wants to focus on the 90 minutes prior to the first airing of the first SNL show. And Ghostbusters Afterlife and Frozen Empire writers Gil Kenan and Jason Reitman don't want to throw off the movie by adding in studio politics. But then I began to wonder, why introduce William Dafoe's character if the sole purpose was to introduce these questions? If William Dafoe's character actually did just merely show up 90 minutes prior and say, "What's the plan, Lorne Michaels?" then that's all fine and dandy. Kudos to the film for being accurate. But it also makes it feel like it should have been a bigger movie than just 90 minutes prior to air. Saturday Night's entertainment value isn't in question here because it's a fun ride, and I'll get into that in a second. But Kenan and Reitman could have been more strategic on how to handle our studio executive scenes. William Dafoe's character isn't an important character to have, especially to add that intensity as we get to the countdown as we lead to the climax. But the written dialogue is one that should have been revisited because it does take away from the movie's fun factor, and at times it does add more of a distraction as we think along these questions. Now, when we have a movie about the first episode of the legendary long-running comedy show of 50 seasons, this is hard material to crack, especially with how many iconic comedians began their stardom there. Reitman has to balance the history, the comedy, the fun factor that the show is all about, along with probably one of the most challenging character directions that we will see this year. We have a ton of unique, distinctive comedian portrayals here that can't be easy to navigate. From Dan Aykroyd, Chevy Chase, Billy Crystal, Andy Kaufman, Gilda Radner, Garrett Morris, and of course the late John Belushi. All of these performances are either believable or believable enough, with the shining portrayal here again by Matt Wood as Belushi. Watching all these performances is like watching an SNL skit by itself. But here is where the true magic is when it comes to Kenan and Reitman's film. Is that it's not all fun and games, it's not all comedy. They show levels of vulnerability in these characters. These are some of the biggest names in comedies from the 80s, and Saturday Night reminds us that they are human. They were just starting their career. They had fears, they had heartbreak, nervousness, addiction, fear of failure. And Saturday Night really does tap into a proper balance here of comedy and vulnerability, and of course the entertainment value that never dips. Amongst all the chaos in the film, the movie still has to find ways to squeeze in some some depth to these characters in the short amount of time we get to spend with these comedians and these executives. The only exception we have to these likability of these characters and the subtle depth is with our Lorne Michaels character that really does play the linear foundation of a straight-faced producer, in which the movie does give us some backstory snippets for him throughout, but we never really learn anything below the surface, and he has most of the screen time. There are times where Lorne Michaels' character would appear on screen and there's a level of disappointment, like when we had a commercial come on in the middle of our cartoons as we were kids. I wanted to go back to the fun characters, the interesting characters. Saturday Night is an ambitious and challenging film for Reitman to take on, but said and done, it's hard to see anybody take on a topic and material like this with a level of execution and balance, while holding on to the entertainment value and fun factor. The runtime of Saturday Night flies by among the chaos, and in that chaos, we get nostalgic feelings of comedy that once was, and some chaotic depth of some of our characters. Not a lot of depth, but an impressive amount given the intent and tone that Reitman set out to do. If it wasn't for a weak lead of Lorne Michaels and the missing questions of how and why with the show, this could have been something to really talk about. But it's an irresistible, entertaining ride to give a slight recommendation at 3 stars. Arthur Fleck is institutionalized at Arkham, waiting trial for his crimes as Joker. While struggling with his dual identity, Arthur not only stumbles upon true love, but also finds the music that's always been inside him. In the sequel to the 2019 surprise hit comes Joker, Folie à Deux.
2 years ago, the name Arthur Fleck hit Gotham like a hurricane.
The trial of the century. They believe Arthur Fleck to be some kind of martyr. Well, he's not. There's a monster.
When you're smiling, when you're smiling.
When I first saw Joker, when I saw you,
the whole world smiles with you.
For once in my life, I didn't feel so alone anymore.
When you're laughing, oh, when you're laughing, the sun comes shining through. For once in my life, I have someone who needs me. How about you, Arthur? Do you still think you're a star?
Showtime.
The whole world smiles with you.
you can do anything you want.
The sun comes.
You're Joker.
Look around! Look at all these people!
Bring on.
I will no longer allow any of you
So stop your sighing.
to keep me down.
Be happy again.
I got the sneaking suspicion that we're not giving the people what they want.
It's okay, baby. Let's give the people what they want. Sing hallelujah. Come on, get happy. Get ready for the judgment day.
This is a sequel that even the original cast and filmmakers were pretty vocal that a sequel to The Joker wasn't necessary. But at the same time, with any given actor, actress, or filmmaker, not to undermine the studio, they would insert the quote of, unless the script is there. And in complete fairness, a sequel to the first one, I think we all can agree is a little unnecessary. The Joker from 2019 was a one-off, it was unique, it finally brought something fresh to the table when it comes to substance. But I kept an open mind going into this sequel, and this is a sequel that really had to get creative on how it was going to elevate the surprise emotions, the surprise surprise performances and the surprise originality of the first film. And to its credit, it does take chances on ideas, but at the same time almost pulls a Joker-esque kind of manipulation on the audience. It keeps us guessing on not only where this film is going to go, or what in the hell is going on, or what is the intent of the movie. It plays with the audience on its intent by giving it a genre that divides audiences that you either love or hate by being a musical. It doesn't expand the story like we see a sequel should, but rather just shows us a singular situation of the aftermath of the first movie and attempting, again, key word here, attempting to give us a look of another level of traumatic insanity into our Arthur Fleck character after the events of the first movie. Folie Deux plays almost like an expansion of the character, a side story, or even an extended cut of the first movie, if it had an extra hour or two, with a climax that I think nobody is gonna like. It's almost like a satire of sequels, or a Joker-type shenanigan to give the middle finger to those that seek out sequels that don't really need sequels. It's a Joker sequel that's a joke on the audience. This is where I'm torn, because in a way I can appreciate the ambitious ideas knowing that this will separate audiences. Exactly what our Arthur Fleck character does with public opinion in both films. In a way, it's almost a very subtle brilliance to the ideas. But at the end of the day, when the sun sets and the credits roll, it's all about execution. Does the Joker Folie Deux execute the ideas to an emotional level that we saw from the first film? 100% not. Absolutely not. Even with my outlook and my theories on the intent of this film, the execution isn't there to support it. It also plays it too safe and subtle to balance the topic of mental health utilizing a familiar character. It doesn't make us squirm in our seats to the curiosity of our Fleck character or take us on a newer depth of the mental trauma and the persona of Joker. The musical numbers are there of pure fantasy to represent the mental state or the state of insanity mixed with love. However, it delivers a message on how even the most insane can be floating on a cloud in love. And you can fight it all you want and disagree all you want, but you know you've all been there. But the problem we have with a lot of the musical numbers is that they come in troves. There are too many in numbers to really land a solid output of emotion, where at one point it felt like rapid fire of musical numbers to supplement the dialogue. It would be one thing if the musical numbers were memorable, but they're not. We have a couple of good scenes that surround full musical numbers, not partial, but when the film rapid fires some brief snippets of songs, that's where it feels artificial to supplement good opportunity to really deep dive into our Arthur Fleck character. And this is where the true problem lands. It's not an evolution of story, and we don't see an evolution of Arthur Fleck. Joker Folie Deux takes place at the height of realizing the result of actions, and Arthur is on trial for his actions, and we don't get any really growth in the character. We get hints and we get moments, but even towards the climax, we don't see the evolution of Arthur Fleck. And when I say transitional moment, I'm talking about the transitional moment of insanity, or even a memorable scene. The scene I'm talking about is what we saw in the first one, where we have Joker dancing on the West 167th Street steps. This was a scene that was memorable, and it was also a breaking point. It was also a transitional mental state for Arthur Fleck. Todd Phillips and Scott Silver attempt this in the climax of attempting to give a moment, but it comes across as rushed, subtle, complete misfire of what could have been a big moment for the film. It comes across as a courtroom episode of the series finale of Seinfeld. It just doesn't feel right. One thing that stays on top of mind is the tone and surroundings, including our supporting cast, that counteract the silence we get from Joaquin Phoenix. The supporting characters speak for Arthur Fleck in terms of the public opinion, and they seem to grow in development instead of Fleck. It's a supporting cast that adds the stress of what's happening, including a role of authority of a prison guard, Jackie Sullivan, played by Brendan Gleeson, who almost is more interesting than our Joker. Our character as Sullivan is always keeping us guessing with how neutral he is. Todd Phillips is brilliant with how he handles his character as a representation of morality in society, of how he should handle Joker. He sees the human and he sees the monster. The movie is almost surrounding Sullivan to help carry the message in place of Joker, since the Joker has very little dialogue in the first half of the movie. And Todd Phillips knows this. We get a lot of emotional shots and expressions from Sullivan than we do our Joker or Harley Quinn. They want to bring in public opinion, but how do they do that without showing the TV set or a crowd of mobs. In this secluded environment, we have our Sullivan character play almost a bigger role. My eyes was glued on the screen to see what Sullivan was going to do versus what our Joker is going to do. Society in this movie is more interesting than our antagonist. Todd Phillips knows he wants to overload this movie with showing emotion and insanity through song, and cleverly utilizes supporting characters to attempt to balance it out. Even though I did like a lot of the supporting characters, this doesn't mean holistically it's successful, but it's a noticeable win on Phillips' intent of vision. Joker Folie Deux isn't a horrible movie or a horrible sequel, and on a surface level with expectations high, as if we're watching The Godfather Part 2 of superhero movies, it won't meet the viewer's expectations. But I do have a feeling that this will be revisited in the future and realize this was an underrated movie when it comes to the intent of Todd Phillips. Take expectation out of it. Take the love or hate of musicals out of it. Take the ideologies that sequels rarely beat out the original and appreciate Joker for what it is. A satire of the genre and sequels that divide audiences. But maybe I'm reading too much into it. To me, this is a satire of sequels, but at the same time, we all interpret it differently. The movie has issues on story and its characters, but I can't shake this feeling that this was the intent, even with an ending that will have most giving the finger to the screen. Again, it's about the intent, and I can see it, but at the same time, I wanted to go up to the screen and give therapeutic help to Arthur to push this movie along. I'm giving Joker Folie Deux 2.5 stars. And that's a cut on this week's edition of The Movie Wire. I want to thank you for listening and thank you for your support. You can also show support by following me on Instagram, Blue Sky, X, Thread, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, and Letterboxd at Movie Wire Show. And please don't forget to leave a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. And if you haven't yet checked out the Cult-Worthy Cinema Podcast and the Movie Wire's crossover show, Back to the Balcony, make sure you do. Again, the link of that show will be in the description of this episode. Until next week, do me a favor. Make sure you stay for after the credits to show the respect to those that put their blood, sweat, and tears into making a feature film and support your local movie theaters.
Memories we hold tight, but Joker just didn't impress with the satire of sequels. Let's break it down, hit rewind and rewind. This ends the movie wire with the show full of pride. Justin Henson's here, let's take in stride. Review and subscribe, review and subscribe. We'll shine in the light in this film pop sky. We're ready to ignite. Megalopolis came in last. It took its time and still made me say, what the fuck is going on? We crave that depth, a reason to invest, but still make absolutely no sense. One last take, let's discuss the grind. This ends the movie wire. Goodbye, see you later. It's time for the credits to roll. Justin Henson's here, let's take in stride. Review and subscribe, the projector will shine in the light. We're ready to ignite. This here's to the films that spark on the light. Join us next time as we take off flight. Justin Henson's here, let's take in stride. Review and subscribe, the projector will shine in the light, we're ready to ignite. Join us next time as we take off flight. Join us next time as we take off flight. One last take, let's discuss the grind. So here's to the films that spark our delight. Join us next time as we take our flight.
Thank you for bringing me to the movies.
As the credits roll, we say farewell. Join us next time, we'll have more tales to tell.